Hey everyone, thanks for coming. This is Jeff Nappi, and he's going to talk to us about cryptocurrency today.
Thanks, guys. Cryptocurrency is a topic that I'm very excited about. I think it's something that is going to have a huge impact on the world. I think that a lot of people who got into cryptocurrency and understand it thought it was going to revolutionize the world in like a few years, but the time scale is really going to be something more like 20 to 30 years, I think. But let's take a look at it, and I can tell you a little bit about it. So what is cryptocurrency? First, let's talk about what we're going to cover. Cryptocurrency, we're going to talk about what it is. We're going to talk about why you should care. We're going to talk about an international cypherpunk adventure that I had. It's super sweet. And we're going to talk about rules to live by using cryptocurrency. So here's what cryptocurrency is. It's digital currency in which encryption techniques are used to regulate the generation of units of the currency and verify the transfer of funds operating independently of a central bank. So encryption. Encryption is taking basically keys and then information and being able to disguise that information with a key that can only be read with access to that key, if you don't know what encryption is. Cryptocurrency is like a revolutionary way to use encryption that only had recently come about. Like people have been talking about these sorts of things in books and like novels about, like there were these cypherpunk novels about these like coders and like encryption guys and like the stuff that they were doing in sometime in the far future and how the currency worked. And people had like ideas about this stuff, but not until like the mid-2000s was it really brought to reality, and only really came to the view of the public recently. So what is cryptocurrency and what is it capable of? Cryptocurrency is capable of transferring money peer-to-peer without the involvement of a central bank or a middleman. I could send if I had $1 million worth of Bitcoin right now, I could send it to somebody in sub-Saharan Africa with no transaction fees, with no middleman involved. The only thing that would be involved is basically miners around the world who sign the transaction. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty technical details about cryptocurrencies, but I'm just going to cover the surface area there. Smart contracts with escrow. This is a really crazy concept. You can, via the use of some of these new currencies, one of them called Ethereum and one of them is called Codius, you can actually like write code that's part of a transaction. So I could say, like Jay and CJ and myself, we could get in like a Super Bowl pool, and we could create a smart contract that, Jay takes his position, CJ takes his position, I take mine, and then we could write some code that will go and check it'll check like the ESPN website, check the Reuters website, and check like maybe another news source, and then if the conditions are met once the game's over and the conditions are met, it'll decide who won and how much they get paid out, and the code will pay out to the individuals. So it's basically like you can make an agreement for like an event that's going to take place and build in logic that self-executes so that it's basically like eliminating the sports book in essence. So that's one idea that you can use smart contracts for. Another revolutionary thing is anonymized transactions. So Bitcoin itself, if I talk about Bitcoin, and it's one of the cryptocurrencies, there's many of them, but Bitcoin has a public ledger that everybody can see. Everybody on the internet, you can just download the Bitcoin public ledger and you can see like what accounts have sent money to what other accounts. They don't have names attached to them, they just have like account codes attached to them, but everybody can see the ledger. And if somebody can tie you to one of those accounts via like an exit point, like an exchange, then they can trace everything you've spent like from that coin, like where it went and who you sent it to, and then if they can take it out, then they can be tracked and people can identify who's who. Like cash doesn't work that way. Cash doesn't keep a history of like who had it and who gave it to who. And Bitcoin does have that problem by itself. Other currencies such as like Dash and Monero strive to offer like privatized transactions where they anonymize the transactions and they make it so that it's very difficult or impossible to tell like where money was spent and who spent it. Decentralized governance. So Dash has a voting system built into it. Dash actually decides how their money is spent on marketing, on their staff, on like all their efforts online, on their hosting expenses and their website and their graphic design and whatever they do. It's all decided by a democratic process that involves like a cryptographic proof of stake in order to vote. And what that means is like in Dash, like the people who hold Dash, it's like a stock. So like if you have a bunch of Dash, you have more voting power in like how they govern the currency. And so they've built like a distributed governance model with that. So trivia, where was Dash created? Does anybody know where Dash came from? Like Dash currency, who created it? Does anybody know who created it? He's cheating. Yeah, so Evan Duffield created Dash. One thing about most cryptocurrencies is a lot of the people who've created them are anonymous. Not all of them. Nobody actually knows who the real person is who created Bitcoin. He goes by the handle Satoshi Nakamoto. And nobody knows if he's actually Japanese or if he even exists or if it's a group of people. It's still a mystery. And in the Bitcoin ledger, there's a whole bunch of Bitcoin that is not being touched that individual controls or is believed to control. Okay, so why should you care? Like, I know it sounds like really all nerdy and like, oh, cryptocurrency, yada yada. I think there's a lot of reasons why you should care. So to me, I think cryptocurrency represents one of the biggest opportunities in like business or like finance or anything in my lifetime. It represents one of them. There's a few that I put in that category, and they apply to me directly. They don't necessarily apply to everybody, but for me, these are the things that really like hit me hard and made a big difference in my life. One of them was the commercialization of the internet. So the internet has existed, since 60s, 70s, I believe, but it was a military system. It wasn't for public use. It was used for military and education purposes and not for commercial purposes. But in the 90s, when the internet became commercialized, that was a huge financial opportunity for me because I went to work for a commercial internet company as a young man, and I still work in that industry today. Supercomputers were built off-the-shelf commodity hardware with open source software, free software. People had millions and billions of dollars spent on these crazy supercomputers and these giant single machines and these big rooms with all this power and cooling and all these things. And then Google came along and said, hey, you guys, they went around their university at Stanford and said, hey, what spare computers can you guys spare? And grabbed all the scrap computers that were lying around Stanford and started building Google on it. They figured out how to decentralize processing in a way that was very cost effective and massively benefited everybody. And now today, obviously we've got things like AWS. You want to spin up 1,000 nodes with 4 GPUs in each one and hundreds of gigs of RAM or terabytes of RAM and disks and everything, no problem. You can do that at a flick of a switch as long as you have enough money. Anyway, pay-per-click and pay-per-action direct-to-consumer advertising. For me, pay-per-click was huge. I started a company with a fellow, Mike Zolotel, in the early 2000s. We were buying major keywords for 10 cents a click, 5 cents a click, and ramped up a hotel reservation service built on pay-per-click up to $25 million a year in revenue, almost overnight. We went from zero to $50,000 a day in hotel reservations in a matter of a couple months. Pay-per-click was a huge opportunity, and I think that I personally feel like I missed the boat on that one a little bit because I built a bid management software for pay-per-click, but then we used that software as our competitive advantage rather than selling pay-per-click bid management software, which we would have been one of the first companies to do that if we had. Smartphone and smartphone apps, that was huge. That's changed everybody's life. I'm driving anywhere and I pull up Google Maps and navigate there because I want to know what the traffic conditions are. I can ask any question I want any time of day. We all know how much of an impact that smartphones have had. And then I think cryptocurrency is in this category. Like, this is one of the things that is going to change the way that we live. It may take some time, and it may take a while for it to figure out like how it fits into our society. People may take a while to understand it, be comfortable with it. It's a very complex thing, and it's not to be taken lightly. Because there's no central point of trust, that also means that you're responsible for everything. So if you make mistakes and you manage yourself, you manage your security, or you're like, however you use cryptocurrency poorly, those sorts of things, like, there's risks. So people are gonna have to figure out how that'll work. So I think it's a fundamental shift in technology. All right, so we talked about what cryptocurrency is, and we talked about why you should care. I think it's worth caring about. I don't know what you guys think, but I definitely do. So now I'm going to tell you about this international cypherpunk adventure. We have this really dramatic slide. So early on in our company, like, I work for a company called Clear Voice. One of our employees who had always been fascinated with finance and finance technology, and this is a guy who had built like AI trading technology that he found like APIs where he could do stock market trading, and he was trying to build like a AI stock trading fund. And he had like these big servers in his house, in his closet, and he was he had like air conditioners in there because it was too hot and he was using too much power and all this stuff. And he had all these he built like some big bins where he kept a bunch of servers in to run his AI algorithms to try to do the stock trading. And he came across Bitcoin, and while he was working with us, he kept telling us, he's like, hey man, like Bitcoin, I was like, here's this thing over here, here's a way you can set it up, and you can mine in a pool and you can get paid out. And in retrospect, it's one of the things where I didn't listen closely enough at that time. But he ended up going and building a new way of calculating a hash for a cryptocurrency, and basically made it so that it was more complex for people to build hardware to mine it. I'm not going to get into detail about what all that means. And then he created a way of anonymizing transactions, and he founded a currency called Darkcoin. At that time, he told me about it, and it had been running for a while, and I said, you know what, I'm going to grab a couple. I'm going to grab a little bit. And so I went to an exchange. So basically, I went to Coinbase, which is a San Francisco-based company, very reputable. If you're going to deal with a Bitcoin exchange, and you're going to play with Bitcoin and check it out, Coinbase is the company that you want to check out. It's like safe, like you can link your bank accounts to it, you can trust them. They're backed by very, very respectable and trustworthy people. And so I put $200 in Coinbase, and then I took that Bitcoin and I transferred it to a shady Bitcoin exchange in China somewhere. I don't know where they are, but it was one of the ones that had adopted Dash, or Darkcoin at the time. And so what I could do was take Bitcoin and exchange it for this other Dash cryptocurrency on an exchange, which is just like a website somebody runs where they do transactions for you. And then I could take the Dash, and then I could transfer that to my computer, where I had my own Dash wallet, my own wallet running, and then I could take that file and I just encrypted it. I went it's called GPG, GNU privacy, and then I took that file and I just stuck it on my Google Drive. And I bought $200 worth. I encrypted the wallet. I stuck it on Google Drive. I'm cool. So there's two passwords on it. There's a password on the wallet, and there's a password for the encryption key for the encryption that I used. Stuck the file up there, and I'm like, all right, cool. Someday maybe it'll be worth something, whatever. I'm not gonna stress about it. So that $200 was 1,100 Darkcoin. Now I'm gonna keep saying Darkcoin and Dash interchangeably a little bit, maybe. The early era of Darkcoin was called Darkcoin, and then later they rebranded to Dash, which is a much better name. So with those 1,100 coins sitting there, I just went about my life, didn't really mind it. And I was traveling in Europe with my wife, and we were in Rome, and Mike, I think, my friend Mike, mentioned something to me about it, and he's like, hey, Dash is like spiking, and I was like, oh, what? And I went and go look at it, and it had bounced up to, it had gone from like cents up to $10 a coin, and I was like, oh man, I'm just gonna sell it. That's it, I'm done, I'm out, that's a good deal. So it went from $200 to $10,000 for me, and I'm like, this is great, I'm gonna sell. I sold it. After I sold it, it spiked all the way up to $27 before falling back down. So, I missed out there. I mean, yeah, sure, that could have been $27,000. I lost $17,000 because I sold too early or whatnot. And I wasn't actively, it's not something where I was sitting there actively trading it. I was just going about my life and whatnot. So when I decided I was going to sell it and cash out, I wanted to tell you all about like what that involved. So keep in mind, like I'm in Rome, like I just have my laptop, random laptop, doesn't even have this cryptocurrency software on it, nothing. I'm in like a Airbnb, pull up my laptop, go to their website, download the wallet software, and then I go to my Google Drive, download this like encrypted file, and then I have to like decrypt that file, so I have a passphrase for that file, and then I put that in the wallet software, open up the wallet software, and it asks me for my wallet password. So then I have another password. Okay, so thankfully I remembered my passwords like this time. So I had 100 left at this point. What I did is I sold 1,000 for $10,000. And I did that on one of the shady exchanges. I think it was located in China. CCEX? CCEX?
Eastern Europe.
Okay, Eastern Europe, not China. Close enough. So, I'm in Rome. I'm downloading this file off the Google Drive, probably somewhere in San Francisco. Then I'm opening up the wallet software, waiting for it to download the whole ledger, and then I'm saying, okay, let me try transferring. Let me transfer one to an account at this exchange. So I transfer one dark coin. It works. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to transfer 999. So I transfer 999 over there. So I have 1,000 over there. And then I go to this exchange and I say, okay, I want to sell these dark coin for Bitcoin. And then it shows you the trades, like how much people are willing to pay in each currency, and when they match up, the transaction goes through. And it shows you a visualization of like how much people are willing to pay and how much you're willing to sell for. And then when it matches up, the transaction goes through. So then I have this $10,000 worth of Bitcoin, just sitting in this shady Eastern European exchange that there's no trust there. It's like, who runs it? I don't know who he is. Just a guy in his basement, possibly. Like, no central authority on this. So when you deal with exchanges, it's not like dealing with just the currency, because you have to go through another layer in order to transact, unless you trade in person. So then I transferred that $10,000 from that $10,000 in Bitcoin from that exchange to Coinbase, and then from Coinbase, which is the trustworthy guys that I actually do trust, I transferred it into my bank account, and then I paid full taxes on it to the IRS because I wasn't going to mess around with that. So it was I definitely was within 2 years, and so I paid my full tax rate on that. So IRS, I paid for my taxes. Yeah, I didn't want to mess with that. So that's kind of like this crazy process of how I got from that, I had that $200 worth of coins and all encrypted and all this craziness, and then decrypting it and sending it around the world in order to get it into my bank account and ultimately withdraw it. Cool. So with that, I just want to give you guys, if you play with cryptocurrency at all, I want to you check it out. I want to give you some advice, just real basic ones. So for now, I would say never leave cryptocurrency balances in an exchange. The only people that I would exempt from that would maybe be Coinbase. But basically, Coinbase is likely to be okay, but a lot of these other cryptocurrencies are traded on other exchanges. And it's been fairly, you could say it's kind of common for the owners of these exchanges to occasionally just take all the money and bolt. It's happened a few times. And in fact, a guy who used to work for me also started a Bitcoin exchange called Cryptsy, and apparently he disappeared. So nobody knows where this guy is. Yep, pretty interesting. Okay, so encrypt your wallet with a password. And when you set up a cryptocurrency wallet, and even if you can set a password for it. You can never reset your password, by the way. I just want to say that. You can't reset your passwords. So these passwords you can set them and then you can change them if you know them, but you can't reset it because there's no central anything. This is it's like if you had a key to your house and it was the only key and you couldn't change the locks, and there's no locksmiths. or there's no cheap locksmith. There's ways to get around it, but it's expensive. Encrypt your wallet.dat with GPG, which is GNU privacy, and then you can that's a way of you can back that up. So you can have it on your computer, you can have your password on it, but then you can encrypt that file and stick it on Google Drive or email it to yourself or anything like that. So if you lose your computer, you lose anything, you can recover your cryptocurrency. Don't forget your passwords. I know somebody in the audience today who has several $1,000s worth of cryptocurrency that cannot be accessed because they forgot their password. Okay, cool. So that's it for the talk. But I wanted to show you one thing. I wanted to show you this because I said that I told you that I had sold those coins when they were $10, right? This is the current capitalization of Dash. It's $95 a coin today. So would have been $95,000 from that $200 investment that I had made. And Dash is actually at $700 million. It's recently made a significant rally, which has been pretty huge. Not really sure what the cause is there on the rally that they've had, but it would literally, it's 10x what it was a month and a half ago. It's really gone crazy. That's what made me think of doing this talk. Cool. So that's it. Thanks, guys.